And welcome again to Side by Side, page 72. Hold on, it's going to be a rough ride. Now, you need to see my introduction to present unreal conditionals. I already sent it and I posted it on our YouTube channel, so please watch that first. Just reviewing, you can see by this example, if they lived closer, they'd visit us more often. Now, this they'd means they would. All right. Notice here, if they lived closer, if is the conditional, then they'd visit us. All right. If they lived in this imaginary tense, it's imaginary. It's not real. That's why it's called unreal. If they lived, and this is the past tense, closer, they'd visit us. Visit is present tense. They would visit us more often. All right, so that's the trick about this tense. This is the present unreal conditional. If takes the past tense, would takes the present tense. You'll get used to that, don't worry. Listen, and if you, just don't freak out. Just promise me you won't freak out. Okay. If I would, he would, she would, we would, they would work. It's very easy, no changes there. So here's the example.
Why don't our grandchildren visit us more often?
They don't live close enough. If they lived closer, they'd visit us more often.
If they lived closer, they'd visit us more often. Okay, you got it.
Why isn't Alexander able to lift weights?
He isn't strong enough. If he were stronger, he'd be able to lift weights.
Now they're pulling a trick on you right now. If they were, okay? If I were, he were, she were, it were, we were, you were, they were. Not was. Okay, were is the past tense they're using here for everybody, not was. It's not if I was stronger. It's if I were stronger. Now I know you're going to hear if I was. It's becoming more common, and this is a good example of how grammar is really changing. But in our book, we're very precise, and in my language, I'm very precise. I use if I were. All right? If he were. Okay? So let's try this one.
Do exercise 1 based on the first model. You will hear the correct line after you speak. We'll begin.
Why don't I feel energetic?
You don't sleep enough. If you slept more, you'd feel energetic.
Do exercise 2 based on the second model. You will hear the correct line after you speak. We'll begin.
Why isn't Sally a good driver?
She isn't careful enough. If she were more careful, she'd be a good driver.
This is page 73.
Do exercises 3 through 12. You will hear the correct line after you speak. We'll begin.
Why doesn't Brian get good grades?
He doesn't study enough. If he studied more, he'd get good grades.
Notice they're changing enough to more. If he studied more, he'd or he would get good grades.
Why aren't you satisfied with your job?
Remember to change this to more.
I don't get paid enough. If I got paid more, I'd be satisfied with my job.
Notice the sentence is, I don't get paid enough. That's present tense. Now when he changes to the present unreal conditional, if I got paid more. Okay? You're doing great. Don't freak out.
Why doesn't Amy have friends at school?
Outgoing means friendly and confident.
She isn't outgoing enough. If she were more outgoing, she'd have friends at school.
If she were more outgoing, in California we call that outgoing. It means confident and friendly.
Why doesn't Stan have a yearly checkup?
Remember, change this to more.
He doesn't care enough about his health. If he cared more about his health, he'd have a yearly checkup.
You're doing great.
Why aren't most Americans in good physical condition?
Because we're quarantined. Just kidding.
They don't exercise enough. If they exercised more, they'd be in good physical condition.
Exercised, that wasn't very clear. Exercised enough, they'd be in better physical condition. I'm not sure if he said good or better.
Why isn't Melvin a good salesman?
He isn't aggressive enough. If he were more aggressive, he'd be a good salesman.
Aggressive in this sense means really confident. Like she says no, and he says, wait, I have something fantastic. You really need to know this. And she says no, and he needs to still be aggressive. He still needs to force his opinions on her. As a salesman, that's part of your job. So if you're a salesman, good for you. That's a really hard job.
Why doesn't my car get better gas mileage?
You don't tune up your engine often enough. If you tuned up your engine more often, it would get better gas mileage.
More often. So change this to more often. Tune-up sometimes has a hyphen in there, a dash. Tune-up means an oil change, checking the fluids, checking everything to make sure it's in good condition. That's called a tune-up.
Why don't you and Janet get along with each other? We don't have enough in common. If we had more in common, we'd get along with each other.
So here's this guy, here's this girl. He's reading books, she's exercising. They don't have very much in common. Very much similar things they like. We don't have very much in common. The word get along means to be friendly with one another. Why don't you and Janet get along? Why aren't you friendly with each other? We just don't have enough in common. If we had more things in common, we would get along. All right?
Why don't our representatives in Congress do something about pollution? They aren't concerned enough about the environment. If they were more concerned about the environment, they'd do something about pollution.
All right, I know that's a hard one, but look at this word, representatives. 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 Or lazy English, we say representatives. Representatives. And those are our elected officials, our congressmen, our representatives. On the state level or the national level, we have representatives. That's part of American government, is that we vote for, we elect our representatives. So our representatives in Congress, why don't they do something about pollution? They aren't concerned enough about the environment. If they were more concerned about the environment, they'd do something. They would do something about pollution. Very good. And finally,
Why doesn't our English teacher buy a new pair of shoes?
He doesn't make enough money. If he made more money, he'd buy a new pair of shoes.
well, I don't need a new pair of shoes because guess what? We're in quarantine and I don't need any shoes. All right, my friends, I know that was a difficult page, but I know you can do it. You got this. Come on. You can do this. All right. Don't freak out. Just try it again. All right? Okay, I'll see you later.